If you want to truly master a character, you need to know their entire set of moves and movement options. You don't have to use all of them or even half of them, but the more you know, the more effectively you can combine the ones you like into an effective game plan. First, I'll break down Blaziken's attributes, then go over field phase moves, dual phase moves, and finally, burst mode. Once you're ready, check out part 3 of this guide, which goes over how to play the character to win games. Let's get started. Blaziken has 600 health, average walk speed. It excels when it comes to whiff punishing, damage, and offensive pressure. Some of its weaknesses are space control from mid-range to full screen, defense, anti-airing, and most surprisingly, dealing with armored reversals. The biggest challenge when playing Blaziken is really psychological. It's a low to medium risk and very high reward character, but you're going to have to take a ton of those risks against most of the cast since they can keep Blaziken out for a while with superior projectiles and lower commitment normals. Also, Blaziken's EX moves do recoil damage in Grey Life, which starts to become a significant problem without an HP restoring assist or if you are constantly losing field phase. So let's start with that. Blaziken's field phase moves from mid to long range are slow, have lots of recovery, and have low projectile priority. But instead of using them to zone, it can instead use them to cover its approach as it closes in on the opponent. Side Y can be used as a weak shield to get close to opponents. If it hits from far away, it can combo into forward Y. It trades with and even erases many other side Ys, like breaks it. Neutral Y has limited use in neutral because of its slow startup and recovery. But when opponents are just getting up or coming down from an air reset, you can do neutral Y from far away as a safe way to pressure the opponent without risk of counterattacks hitting you. With practice, you can forward Y on reaction to it hitting. From close up, when done meaty, it can combo into EX Blaze Kicks and has enough active frames to outlast fully charged counterattacks. Forward Y is Blaziken's lowest commitment poke that leads directly into a phase shift. It's minus 12 on block, but the pushback will prevent 11 frame moves from punishing you. Aside from its special moves, I think this is Blaziken's best move in field phase. All of Blaziken's moves can be held down to get the enhanced or EX version of them. The downside to this is they do recoil damage. The upside is this makes these moves not utterly suck. For example, normal Blaze Kicks starts up in 15 frames, does little damage, and the first hit is considered a light. There's a gap between the two hits and it does not combo into the Flare Blitz follow-up, which is done with X. It is also minus 8 on block. The Flare Blitz follow-up is done by pressing X after the first kick and it pierces armor. When held, it gives you the EX version. The normal version is unsafe, but it comes out faster and has more armor. The EX version does more damage and is minus 8 on block, but it has less armor. Use the regular version when reacting to counters and the EX when predicting. Now let's go back to Blaze Kicks. EX Blaze Kicks counts as a heavy attack, combos into both versions of Flare Blitz, is 0 on block, and is quite damaging, doing 160 damage when cancelled into EX Flare Blitz. I find this move to be tied with forward Y as Blaziken's best move in field phase. It starts up faster than every homing attack in the game, and if the opponent is charging counterattack, it can be cancelled into Flare Blitz on reaction to beat them, or the safe EX Blitz on prediction. This means Blaziken can essentially eliminate the rock, paper, scissors game that most characters have to play up close. For maximum effectiveness, try to set up a situation in which you are plus 4 or better before going for Blaze Kicks. This way opponents cannot use side homing to jump or get away. Some characters with aerial armor or fast jumps can still escape. Brave Bird is easily counterable on reaction because of its slow startup. The normal Brave Bird's only real use is to reposition yourself close to the opponent after winning a duel phase. EX Brave Bird is much more difficult to react to, especially if the opponent is waiting for other EX moves like Blaze Kicks and EX Heat Wave. This move puts you at plus 4 so your opponent cannot escape your follow-up Blaze Kicks with the side homing. At plus 4, most of the cast cannot jump away either. Normal Heat Wave is one of the actual worst projectiles in the game due to its slow startup, large recovery, and terrible projectile priority. In field phase, this attack's only function is to bait out attempts to react to your EX moves. EX Heat Wave is plus 4 on block and has a ton of active frames, meaning it outlasts the counter frames of all standard counterattacks in the game, and most command counters too. Moves with lots of active frames but slow startups like Vortex and EX Heat Wave lost some utility a while ago when people learned to homing cancel, but it can still catch people on occasion who commit to guessing a high commitment move when getting up in field phase. Blaziken's counterattack is a high, and it causes a hard knockdown only when it's fully charged. High Jump Kick is another move that displays the trend of how Blaziken's unenhanced moves are significantly worse than its enhanced moves. Jumping A is plus 4 on block, but it doesn't counter pierce, so there's not much reason to commit to a jump and another high commitment move after it in field phase. EX high jump kick causes a bounce when it connects. The frame data in the community document doesn't really tell the full story because it's a jumping attack and because of this bounce animation, but it's negative on block, and the punishes for it aren't guaranteed if the opponent doesn't have a good anti-air. So those are the only normals and Pokemon moves that I ever use, but for completion's sake, here are all the situational moves in Blaziken's moveset in field phase. Flop takes a long time to charge, and the hitbox isn't very wide, but it hits vertically over your head better than the rest of its moveset. It has upper body invincibility frame 5, so it's a rare true anti-air infield. Back Y, also known as Tatsu because of its animation, is Blaziken's move for players who want to end field phase without closing distance the conventional way. The move is unsafe on block against almost the entire cast except for at a very specific range. It's not safe against armor, it starts up slow, and it can rarely be used on reaction, and it has a long whiff animation. If opponents are being predictable with projectiles, they can be erased with back Y, or if you're having a lot of trouble getting in, this can be used on occasion as a hard read. Outside of these situations, I don't recommend it. Jumping Y is if the opponent isn't aware that they can either sidestep, sidewalk, or use a projectile invincible move to avoid this. It can be quite useful after a throw from dual phase when the opponent is near the wall. Putting it at different distances away from the opponent can make them unsure of which way to evade, giving almost guaranteed throws or crumples to players unaware. This follow-up to jumping Y can catch opponents sleeping from full screen, but it is very unsafe on block. Jumping YX is -8 or worse on block when done high, and basically has no practical use unless the opponent has literally never seen this attack before and presses a button after seeing you do jumping Y right over them. Jump side Y, just like jumping Y in its follow-ups, this move is very unsafe on block and terrible on whiff as well. Jumping X can be used as a meaty when opponents are getting up. The frame data is variable, but it can make blaze kicks into a true block string if you do it low enough. This is mostly just to unnerve people who are uncomfortable for blocking for long periods of time. That's most players, by the way. At 21 frame startup, compared to the 15 frame blaze kicks, which can be made to counter pierce, this attack is a poor option just to throw out at neutral. However, it is useful as a whiff punisher when you are sidewalking projectiles. In fact, with Togekiss, the increase in walk speed allows you to whiff punish all kinds of attacks by sidewalking and reacting with homing attack. To summarize, most of Blaziken's field phase moves are trash. Pick the ones you like, build around 3 or 4 of those, and use the rest of them situationally. Part 3 of my guide will be about how I suggest playing Blaziken's field phase, but let's move on to dual phase where Blaziken can really put in work. Outside of burst, 5Y is mostly outclassed by some of Blaziken's other options, which I'll get into. It's a high, so it's mostly reserved for checking characters who cannot duck, like Machamp or Shadow Mewtwo. It has a 5YY and a 5YYY follow-up, which are safe but negative on block, and there is a gap before the last hit. Each hit in the string can be jump cancelled, but I'll talk about how this can be used effectively in the burst section. Blaziken's 11 frame low doesn't low profile like most 2Ys, but it is special cancelable unlike most of them. Instead of getting a straight 20 damage, Blaziken can get an entire combo from landing this move. 2Y being an 11 frame low checks opponents trying to match anti-airs up close because 8Ys universally start up in 15 frames or slower. At 0 on block or better, this is a key move to maintain your offense. It is also a very high damaging throw crush that can be confirmed into EX Brave Bird on critical hit. 5X is a good meaty option against characters that do not have a frame 1 armored command counter. I'll include setups for how to time this to be safe against all standard counterattacks in part 3 of this guide. This is also the go-to starter to punish DPs and other very negative moves mid-screen if you want to phase shift. In neutral, it's way too slow and short range to toss out, however. Previously, I saw 8X as mostly inferior to Blaze Kicks, but now I think unless you're really thirsty for immediate damage, 8X is a better choice to try to start your offense. Let's break it down. The 23 frame startup looks super bad at first, especially when compared to Blaze Kicks, which comes out at 15 frames. It also doesn't pierce, so it's susceptible to all counterattacks and most command counters. The slow startup is mitigated by the fact that it goes over lows starting frame 1 and over mid lows starting frame 9. Most of the fast, far-reaching moves in Pokken are lows or mid lows, so you're usually going to be beating those anyway. As for dealing with counters and anti-airs, here's the deal. Blaziken is very strong point blank, but it's even stronger when it's just outside the range of your opponent's anti-air. At this range, you can just chill out and block, or walking back, as the opponent tries to approach and gauge how they like to defend. If they do random counters and command counters in neutral, you'll figure that out really early, likely before you even get close enough to do 8X in the first place. Don't keep on pressing too many buttons quickly when you're first getting in. Do an 8X, if it's blocked, back up, wait it out, and wait for a whiffed anti-air or counter first before going in again. On hit, you can air dash into jump Y, which beats out anti-air since they recover from the hit slowly. The move is +4 on block, so Blaze kicks will clash and explode 11 frame lights. A dash can be cancelled into air dash with R. This low air dash or instant air dash makes Blaziken's jumping moves much more positive than they normally would be. 6Y throw crushes and starts up in 11 frames. As a high, it's not to be used too frequently, but it can stop opponents from jumping at 0 on block. This leads to a full wall splat combo in the corner from just a raw 6Y. It's -12 on block, but it has little hit stop, and since it has 2 follow-ups, opponents will often be too slow to punish it. Blaziken's 8Y is one of the worst anti-airs in the entire game. Super slow startup at 23 frames, so you won't even hit many jump-ins before they recover or cross you up. And the hitbox is extremely small. Jumping Y is the typical fast jumping attack for the most part. What separates it is the fact that it is a very short recovery animation. This means it can be used as a safe jump. At its lowest height, after an instant air dash, this move is a true block string into 11 frame moves. It can be cancelled into another air dash with R to extend air-to-air combos. Jumping X, not too much use for this move in neutral when jumping Y exists, but as a throw tech it can lead to much more damage than 2Y. Now let's look at the dual phase special moves. Most of these moves work the same as in field phase, so I'll just be going over the differences here. Normal Blaze Kicks is still inferior to EX Blaze Kicks, but it has low recovery when ending wall splat combos to make approaches in field phase faster. The frame data on EX Blaze Kicks is the same as field. The first hit is a mid-high and the second and third kicks are highs, so they can be ducked by all characters with ducking low stances. Definitely don't use this, but if your opponent is super blazed, you might be able to actually hit them with this 39 frame, counterable and anti-airable move. Before the first DX patch, EX Bravebird was the go-to throw crush against command grabs that interacted strangely with 2Y. Now, since it can be staggered out of the air, it's mostly just to get in or continue your offense when the opponent is too hesitant to anti-air. It's also one of the best moves for whiff punishing or poking through the end of counterattack animations. A high projectile with a very slow startup, large recovery, low priority, and little damage. Definitely not one of the first 10 options I suggest using in neutral. It can build a little meter when needed and delay power characters for a few seconds, but it's mostly just a filler attack. EX Heatwave has the same uses mostly as a field phase, but it can be cancelled into from different pressure strings, letting you mix up your offense. This is most often landed after a wall splat, and some characters fall out of EX Heatwave differently, so you may have to switch between the partially charged and fully charged version of the move to properly end your combos or to time your safe jumps. High Jump Kick, basically the exact same moves in field phase, but I personally suggest using EX High Jump Kick. Has much more utility in dual phase due to the instant air dash from 8X. Instead of being punishable, this move becomes about even on block and can cancel again into an air dash afterwards. This move has very few active frames, so it requires a good setup to time against anti-airs and jumps. Sky Uppercut is extremely unsafe to use outside of punishes and combos, but it has projectile invincibility for the duration of its startup. It's better for ending wall combos than EX Sky Uppercut because it doesn't add phase shift points until the last hit. Since it starts up slightly slower than EX Sky Uppercut, it can go through moves that the EX version cannot, since the projectile invincibility necessarily lasts longer. EX Sky Uppercut, a powered up version of Sky Uppercut, this move can extend combos and knock floaty moves out of the air for good conversions. Alright, let's look at some of the situational normals in Blaziken's dual phase. 6XXX, that entire string, the move throw crushes, but starts up slow and it's considered airborne. The first hit doesn't combo into the second hit, and it's not a true block string. I never use this attack at all. It gets a lot of hype, but only from players that don't actually play Blaziken. 6YY, I'm not a fan of this move because of its poor reward compared to the giant risk, but it does clash and beat people trying to punish raw 6Y with an 11 frame grab. 6YX, that's the unsafe follow-up to 6Y. This move is primarily just a combo ender. 2X and 2XX. Super slow, unsafe. You can use it to go under super slow projectiles that are highs like Psycho Cut and Discharge, but that's about it. Release X or Flop. Flop requires you to be holding X, which means you can't use 8X, or you can't use any of your Pokemon moves while holding it because you get counterattacked. It works as an anti-air, but I mainly use it after ending wall splat combos to save HP while still doing the same amount of damage as the Sky Uppercut ender. Now let's talk briefly about the advantages of Blaziken's burst mode. Like all the characters, it gets an increase in speed and attack. Its dash is actually quite fast, but 5Y in burst mode, this entire string is good because it starts as a true mid and it has the ability to jump cancel all of the hits. And it's useful since it cannot be anti-air from 8Ys from the opponents without an attack up or who are also in burst. And it also gains an extra hit, which is very useful for option selects because it increases the amount of hit stop. 2Y gains an extra hitbox as well, which makes it easier to hit confirm and again helps with option selects like 5Y. Blaziken's burst attack is one of the best in the entire game close up. It has tons of invincibility starting from frame 5, and it beats out almost all other burst attacks when done at the same time point blank. It grants a speed up if the final kick makes contact. Yes, you made it to the end. Congratulations. If you found this helpful, I have playlists with other shorter guides like this in the description. Now you know everything that there is to know about every single move Blaziken has. Peace. Praise him, Bassa. I'm never doing one of these again.
Never?
Never, bruh.